to the Legacy Lifestyle Podcast. It's been a while, Jesse.
I know, like 4 months?
I don't know.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I think late October or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you're tuning in live, then when this releases, I don't know the exact release date, but it's March-ish, somewhere in there. We're trying to get some more content into the can, as they say in the industry, get ready to release. But sorry for the long delay. There's been a couple life changes since then. You've started another job. You know,
and at another dental office, which is kind of humorous, but
it works. Absolutely. So that's taken up Monday through Friday on top of just other duties and stuff, and then I started another a part-time job. So life's been a little bit crazy, and but that's all right. Hey, we're so glad that you're here. Thank you for being with us, and if you're new to the Legacy Lifestyle Podcast, we want to say welcome, and we're just so glad to have you here. Today's episode is it's called "What I Learned from a Spartan."
Yeah, I didn't learn anything from this Spartan.
No, you didn't.
Because I didn't do this Spartan.
And I didn't meet...
Kind of a crazy person for doing
kind of a
this
crazy.
Spartan.
Well, we'll get to that here in a second. Because I didn't meet an actual Spartan.
Well, I could
like not someone from Sparta.
I could talk about my Spartan from 2 years ago.
Well, hey, yeah, actually, you could bring that perspective a little bit, right? But she didn't catch my joke there. I said, a Spartan. What I meant, what
I'm sorry.
What I learned from a Spartan. She tunes out my jokes. I mean, she's with nearly 20 years of marriage. She's got this weird radar that she can detect when those lame jokes
just
are coming.
Roll my eyes.
Oh, you always
smile.
Yeah. Maybe I might you might grace me with a smile. Wow. It's been a while. Okay, all right, here we go. So what I learned from a Spartan, and here's the deal: is I think. One of the things we like to do with the Legacy Lifestyle Podcast is we were looking for opportunities to share our journey, to share our struggles. And listen, the last thing we would ever want is for you to tune in and think we got it all together and that, just do life like we do life. Maybe there's some things that you can glean. We certainly want to live with wisdom, and that's our goal and stuff. But you know what? Life's tough. And really, we just acknowledge that at Legacy Lifestyle. We acknowledge if you want to leave a legacy, it takes work, it takes intentionality,
and you'll fall a lot. But I don't know. Somebody told me this. I don't know if it was from a book that they heard it from or what, but I don't even remember who I heard it from. But they just said, if you're going to fail forward. Yeah. So the lack of trying or the lack of wanting to start something new or do something new. Yeah. Is worse than just trying it and falling flat on your face. Right. That the fact that it's like, hey, you may fall and you may fall flat on your face, but at least you fell forward, meaning you fell into something that potentially could be the start of something new for your life. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool.
You're not looking at my notes, are you?
No, I'm not.
All right, because this is supposed to be what I learned from a Spartan, right? No, it's fine. But you're actually onto something. That's point number 2, but we'll get there in a second. No, no, actually, that's really good because you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And that's the thing is, and I want to touch on that just here today because, so for those of you who are not maybe aware of what a Spartan race is, it's kind of an adventure race. It's over rough terrain. It's running, but it's also obstacles, all of that. And they've got various distances. And I think I ran my first Spartan race somewhere around 10 or 12 years ago. Had a great time. It was like a 5K with mud and obstacles. Had a great time. Ran it with some other guys. And I've really liked that. You and I then did a Warrior Dash, I think,
which
sometime.
Is something similar.
Very similar. It's just kind of a different company's approach. And but somewhere along the line, I noticed this thing called a trifecta in the Spartan world. And here's how the trifecta works. In the Spartan world, they have the beast, the super, and the sprint. Okay. And those are 3 different lengths. So the beast is basically like a half marathon. So 13 miles plus obstacles, right? That's the beast race. And then there's the super, which is like a 10K. Okay. Which is like 6.4 miles or something like that.
So like half of a
marathon. It's like a quarter of a marathon. A quarter marathon. Again, with obstacles, right? And then there's the sprint. Now, I had done the sprint race before. You and I did a sprint race together. And so I was very familiar. That's like a 5K with obstacles. Mm-hmm. But I saw this trifecta thing, and I thought, you know what? I want to do a trifecta. Now, you can basically get a trifecta medal if you run all 3 of those races. They give you pieces of a medal, put it all together. And as long as you complete it within a calendar year, all 3 of those races, then you get each one of these medals and you can put it together and you did a trifecta that year.
But it's like a mega medal.
Yeah, it is. But it doesn't stop there. Because then It's not just the trifecta. Then they have a trifecta weekend.
Of which you signed up for.
Yeah.
And I thought you were insane.
And so what it is on the trifecta weekend, you run the Beast, which is the half marathon, on Saturday, and then you come back on Sunday and run the Super and the Sprint.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I am just a little crazy. It's funny because back in high school, I never ran a distance longer than a mile.
I know, but what's weird is that you are a personality that it's like, if you're going to do something, we just as well do the whole thing, go all the way in. And
very true.
Yeah. So
yes, I do. I am kind of an all or nothing personality. And so I don't know what it is. Somewhere a few years back, I think I was just challenged by, I had a friend who threw something out on Facebook and said, hey, who wants to train and do a marathon with me? And I was like, oh, marathon. Again, I never ran more than a mile. And I was like, but a half marathon. I think you and I were watching like Biggest Loser at the time. And I think I watched those contestants do a half marathon. And I was like, could I do this? Again, I've never ran more than a mile. Okay.
On Biggest Loser, though, they kind of somewhat walk sometimes.
Oh, yeah, sure. But hey,
I mean whoever does it, I mean,
absolutely.
it's still a big accomplishment, even if you walk.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, when I don't know, I couldn't walk for a good 2 months after the half
marathon
I couldn't
that we did.
train. I shouldn't say walk. I could walk, but couldn't train my muscles at all.
You had some injuries to overcome.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
So here's the deal. So that's kind of bringing you up to speed on what a Spartan. Of course, a Spartan can be any one of these races. If you do a Spartan race, it could be any one of those distances. And so, without going into just everything, I had asked some friends of mine to do a trifecta with me. You said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You weren't going to do it with me.
You're crazy. No, thank you.
And so Jesse was out right away. I talked to a couple of guys from my church, and so anyway, it ended up falling through. I had booked my ticket, and so I was locked in. So last November, I went and I did a trifecta weekend. Okay. And, it's really interesting because that whole time I was kind of vacillating back and forth. Do I do this? I really didn't want to do it because I don't like doing things alone. I don't like doing things alone. I like community. And just it was hard to motivate myself even training wise sometimes. And I think the closer I got to the race, the less and less I was like, oh, but yet I still wanted that trifecta.
Yeah,
right?
you did.
And so here's the deal.
Well, and you couldn't refund your money, so that was a motivation
absolutely.
for me to say, we're doing this. You're doing this.
See, it's all about the Benjamins with this lady. So anyway, really, what I just want to spend the rest of the time talking about is these three takeaways. And the first thing is that what I learned from a Spartan race, and specifically this trifecta weekend, was I really just learned that I just need to run my race. I just need to run my race. Now, it's so funny how God works, because I think it was like a week or two before this race happened. I had the opportunity to preach at my church on a Sunday morning, and I preached this message about comparison.
Yeah, I still don't like that message. It's a great message, so I love it, but I hate it.
Yeah,
because it's very convicting.
It's very convicting, and what's funny is I had preached that message. I'd preached it years ago, and it's one of those things that I think it's Theodore Roosevelt who this quote gets attributed to him, at least, that comparison is the thief of joy. And I mean, you just sit there and think about that. Comparison is the thief of joy. It's amazing how someone can move into their dream home. Maybe it's on the edge of town and they think, this is so great, I work so hard. And then someone moves in across the street and they've built their house 1 story higher, 2 bedrooms more, 1 more car garage, and all of a sudden you're unhappy.
Right.
Because there's this comparison thing that sets in. And I remember just getting out there and just having this mentality of like, I didn't even know really honestly if I could do this race. I didn't even know if I could do it. And again, I just preached this message of not to compare, that we shouldn't compare ourselves to others. Right. I get out there and immediately you start looking around the field and you start going, oh, I'm not going to be able to beat them. Oh, maybe that could beat that person. You know what I'm saying? And this starts just going through my head. And I had to like really just get that out of my head and say, you know what? This is not about anybody else.
Right.
This is my race.
Right.
This is my race, and it's my race to run. And I'm not going to do myself any favors if I sit here and compare myself. If someone passes me, it doesn't matter.
Right.
If I pass somebody else, it doesn't matter. I'm just out here to finish this thing. I'm just out here to compete. And, you know, and what's been interesting since then, because this is last November, that message has played over and over and over in my mind. That as I just, whether it's people in my community, people in my church, people that I just see out and about in Kearney, I've caught myself now so many times comparing my life to their life, judgments towards myself, judgments towards them. And it's really just made me think, and this is the thing, I just want to be very vulnerable here, and just to let you know, again, we don't have our lives all together. Not everything is perfect.
Right.
And these are messages that I still need to walk out myself, and I'm still learning.
Sure.
And I thought about, one of the things is I've been on this fitness journey right out of high school. I gained some weight, and I really was not really happy with myself. And so I kind of did a crash diet, lost a bunch of weight, which made me feel good in the short term, but it also produced some bad habits for me mentally.
When you say crash diet, do you mean like low calorie, or do you
uber
just mean
low calories? Yep.
You worked hard, or
both?
Oh, okay. So
both.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, I pushed myself. I started running and lifting weights, and then then basically just seeing how little I could eat. And what's crazy was there was almost like this weird psychological effect. I don't know. I haven't studied this out necessarily, but it's almost like the challenge to just to not eat.
Right.
Or just get by on the minimum. And I wasn't paying attention to proteins. I wasn't paying attention to macros or anything like that.
So nutritionists would have.
They would have scolded me, and rightfully
fail.
so. I mean, and so what's really interesting is even then after that, when you and I first got married, I started throwing myself into like muscle and fitness magazines.
Yeah. So like bodybuilder
type stuff, which is stupid because I never wanted to be a bodybuilder. I never wanted to look like that, which, by the way, that's not natural. I mean, if we're just being honest, I mean, those guys are using steroids.
Really big,
really big. I'm not just talking about physically fit. I'm talking like, the massive. But I was reading those magazines and stuff, and there was kind of like an obsessive approach. I mean, and it's crazy how as I would examine these things, I was trying to live up to these expectations that I was putting on myself. And comparing myself to, this or that or whatever. And then basically food just became a roller coaster for me, where I'd have these really high highs or seasons where I could cut stuff out. I could be good for a while, but then I would do something, a family reunion or something like that, and I maybe wouldn't eat on track. And then I would just think failure, And so I was.
So when you thought failure, did that create a cycle of just, what's the point of continuing to eat healthy? So was it hard to get back on eating correctly or according to what you thought?
Absolutely. I mean, there's been this perfectionist mindset that I've struggled with a lot of my life. It's kind of funny because a friend of mine who, he's a former alcoholic, and I started talking to him about just how I like things so, and it's it's a form of control and all of this. That I should control what I eat, but if I upset the apple cart, then I just feel defeated, and then I go into these binge cycles. And he basically told me, he just said from his perspective, he was like, he says, you're an alcoholic, you've just never, taken that drink. He said, it's like food is your alcohol. Mm. And that has been something that I've recognized that there were unhealthy mental patterns that set in.
Right.
And there were unhealthy things, and a lot of it came back to comparison. So while I'm out on the Spartan race, while I'm out there running, it was, you can call it what you want. I really believe it was the Holy Spirit. I really believe it was God speaking to me, just this, run your race. And every time I'd look around and compare or whatever, just run your race. Mm. And so if you're tuning in and watching, listen, I don't want you to watch the Legacy Lifestyle to say, I ought to be like Kris and Jesse. Maybe there's some things you can glean from us, some wisdom, but run your race. Yeah. Run your race. We don't know your life. We don't know your situation, but you can run your race. And you know what? There are things that you're supposed to do that we're not. And
absolutely.
And you've got to do, if you're a school teacher, hey, that's your calling. Go do that. Run your race and do it the way that only you can do it. And so That's the first thing there. The second lesson was this, that I just learned from this, that you should do something that scares you or at least makes you uncomfortable. You should do something that scares you or at least makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah. I feel like I do that a lot.
Really? Give me an example.
I don't necessarily like strangers,
okay,
like people that I don't know. And I get really awkward sometimes in conversation. And so my job is talking to a bunch of people that I don't know really well. So
that's good.
I feel like I'm
living on the edge of
your
comfort zone there. That's good. So are you growing in that area, do you think?
Yeah, I'm not just going into
That's a convincing yeah.
Well, because I'm not like a small talk kind of a person.
Right.
So sometimes I have a really hard time just having small talk.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've noticed I'll go into a conversation with somebody I don't know, be like, so what are your life goals? Not a great way to start a conversation with somebody that barely knows you. You know, you're going to the deep end.
What is the meaning of life?
Right, exactly.
I just met you. Please tell me. Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, it just terrifies me a little bit.
This, and this is something I'm pretty conservative. I'm pretty reserved. I'm pretty held back, pretty calculated. And so even for this, for me here, but once again, if you're listening to that, do something that scares you. That could look different for you. Maybe it is just striking up a conversation with a stranger at a coffee shop. If that's something that kind of pushes you, but it's really on the edge of our comfort zone where we grow. Sure. And so for me, I think the Spartan race was, number one, I didn't want to run alone. That was a really hard thing, and these other times that I've done races, I've always raced with somebody. And especially if you're talking like, a half marathon, you're talking a couple hours of being out there.
Absolutely.
And in some of the half marathons I've ran, I have done one where I ran with headphones, but because of the Spartan race, I didn't want to use my headphones because we're doing mud and stuff like that. So I'm like, I can't even listen to music. And so it was just me alone with my thoughts out there. That was scary.
Yeah.
And I knew that was going to be uncomfortable, not having anybody to talk to, not anybody, and just really just knowing I'd be alone with my thoughts. But it really was a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah.
That being alone with my thoughts was a good thing. And the crazy thing about it is, having had that experience, it actually has demonstrated to me that, maybe times I've feared being alone in my life. Maybe it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so, there was that, doing it alone. Could I do it? And then just really just being like, you know what? I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other. I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other. And I've since come across this, and it's interesting, this mentality kind of kicked in. Navy SEALs, when they're going through their training, and specifically their Hell Week, right? So which is like just brutal. And those guys are just on a whole nother level of mental toughness. But one of the things I heard, one of the strategies that they employ is the strategy of quit tomorrow. In other words, when there's
no point of quitting right now.
Yeah,
in the moment.
You're in the moment.
Yep.
Just see it through. Mm-hmm. You can quit tomorrow. And what ends up happening is, once you get through it and then you sleep a little bit, there's a part of your brain that, because you've had that experience, all of a sudden it's not as bad as the mental projection you had.
Right.
And so you're more likely to follow through the next day. And even that next day, when it got really hard, I can quit tomorrow. I'll give myself permission to quit tomorrow.
Interesting.
And I think for me, just even in the Spartan race was, okay, I've committed to this race, and it's going to be one foot in front of the other. And I knew running that half marathon, and you saw this, when I ran that and did all those obstacles, we went out to eat, and I'd had like a 40-minute car ride. So like, rigor mortis is like setting in my muscles, it feels like. And I get out, we go to grab a bite to eat. And I mean, it's like, am I joking? I could barely move. I was so sore. And I was like, can I even run tomorrow?
Yeah.
I got to go do this all over again.
Thank goodness that we had a hotel that had a working hot tub.
That's right.
I don't know what it was, but like from COVID through 2020, maybe even 2021.
Well, COVID started in 2020.
2020, 2021.
2022.
Yeah. It's like we would go to hotels that said they had a hot tub, but inevitably
always be broken down.
Yeah, broken down, or we emptied that, or
it's kind of like McDonald's and their ice cream machine. You know,
just like,
always broken.
What is happening to our life? So, anyways, when we went to Arizona, we actually had a working hot tub,
and I'm so thankful for it because I felt like $1 million bucks.
Well, and I was able to massage at least your calves while we were in there, which was good.
And you packed Advil, which you asked me before the trip. Should I bring this Advil? I was like, nah.
Well, and you don't usually.
I don't usually take it, but man, I'm glad you did. So thank you, honey.
Yes.
But yeah, so really this idea is a couple things. Again, run your race. The second thing, do something that scares you or at least makes you uncomfortable. Very, very important. I've learned that. Just live on that edge of your comfort zone. And again, the race wasn't new to me. The distance was new to me. The weekend was new to me. But just that idea of being alone. The third thing was this: find a tribe or a community that you can encourage and encourages you. One of the things that I love, and I've every time I've ran a Spartan race, but especially it meant more this time, I think because I was alone, was when you get out on a Spartan race, it's amazing the encouragement that comes your way.
Absolutely.
That people will just throw out, keep it up, keep going, and people that are giving you high fives, complete strangers that are giving you high fives, and I'm not one that necessarily gets caught up in all that stuff. I like deep, meaningful relationships. So, a lot of times, stuff from strangers doesn't necessarily, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I think it was just maybe the mental state that I was in. Those things really did mean a lot to me and really encouraged me. And it made me think about in my own life, who am I championing? Who am I encouraging? Who am I reaching out to? And I even thought about it on the trail. Because here's the thing, with those 13 miles, I'm watching people's bodies start to shut down.
Sure.
And there were people that were dehydrated. There were people that were cramping up. I remember watching one guy as he was walking. Every time he took a step, his knee was buckling. And people of all ages and all fitness levels and body types and all that stuff are out there on the course. But just as you pass somebody, if you made eye contact with them, like, hey, keep it up, good job, you're doing great. Just that. It was amazing to me, and as a pastor, I've thought about maybe how much of this is maybe lacking in our own community. We can get so fixated on ourselves, our lives, come in, listen to a message, sing a couple songs, and just leave.
Well, and it's those quick conversations that I have a hard time with of like, hey, how was your week? Oh, the weather was good, and it's like random, like they're not giving you any information about their actual life, just what the weather is doing. Yeah. And I'm like, that's not really the question that I asked, but sure,
So somewhere around mile 8 or mile 9, having had some encouragement come my way, encouraging others, I was coming up upon a gentleman that I looked at and I thought, okay, this was an older gentleman, and I thought, man, this guy's got to be in his 70s, and here he is. And I'm catching up to him, and I'm just like, just inspired that this guy's out there anyway. I'm like, man, good for you. And so as I come up there, I thought, man, I'm just going to ask, how old is he? How old is he? And so I get up there and I said, excuse me, sir. I'm like, could I ask you, how many years young are you? Nice. And he said, I'm 80 years old.
Wow.
And I just looked at him. I said, wow. I said, that's amazing. I said, that's truly inspirational. And he had a little can of oxygen,
Yeah.
He was like huffing. I said, hey, can you put this in my bag for me? So I put it in the back of his backpack. And I was like, man, I said, man, you are a life goal for me. I said, I really want to be, I'd like to do what you're doing or something. And I made some comment of like, I want to be in that kind of shape, when I'm your age. And he said, me too, or something like that. He's just kind of cracked this joke. And here's what's funny is the rest of the story, according to Paul Harvey, the rest of this story is I had no idea, but I had just interacted with Spartan legend.
Wow.
This guy's name was Paul LaChance. And Paul LaChance had completed over 100 Spartan races.
That's just crazy.
And I gave him a fist bump.
I met that guy in fist bump.
But here's what's crazy, Jesse.
During a Spartan race. And
he's like a legend there. Listen to his story. He had a quintuple he served in the Navy earlier on in his life. He gets out of high school in 1959. Okay, that's the year that, like our parents were like born, or close to, right? My mom was born in 59. And so, he's graduating high school at that age, right? And he went to the Navy and did that and just lived his life. But at age 73, he had a quintuple bypass surgery. At age 73, has a quintuple bypass surgery and just wants to do something to be more active. He finds out about Spartan races and decides he's going to do that. At age 73.
That's hilarious.
And so he starts doing that, and he starts doing it one by one by one. And then he got the bug. He wanted to do a trifecta, and so anyway, I forget what age, but what's crazy is even between the ages of 73, so I saw him at age 80. Between the ages of 73 and 80, in that time, he gets skin cancer. He goes through chemotherapy, but what's crazy
and 144 Spartan races in that time.
100, over 100.
In 13 years.
What's that?
Or
not even, like 7 years. Yeah,
Sorry.
7 years. And so anyway, he has skin cancer, quintuple bypass, trains for his first Spartan, gets skin cancer in that, has chemotherapy somewhere around 2017, 2018, somewhere in there, goes through that. He's still doing trifectas. He reaches, in fact, this is crazy. Here's you have a connection to this. Did you know this?
No.
Because the Spartan you and I ran in Dallas, that was his 100th Spartan. He did it the day before. We ran on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
He did the Beast the day before. That was his 100th Spartan. We didn't know who he was. Right. I remember hearing a story. Some guy did 100 Spartans. It was him. Right there at Dallas, the race that you and I ran down there with some friends. It's just crazy, and I just thought about that here was this, here was this gentleman. And so here's the thing is, he is beloved by the Spartan community. He's an inspiration to so many people. And I just think about our lives. You need to be, we talked about this. We've talked about community and the importance of community go check out that episode. But it is so important. Life comes down to the quality of our relationships.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be about your stuff. It's not going to be about your status. It's going to come down to how did you treat people? What did you leave people with? That's legacy, and I just think about, just even though I don't know if I'll ever meet Paul, but he was an inspiration to me. What's that?
I said again.
Again. Yeah. I don't know if if I'll ever, maybe we'll have him on the podcast one day, but, it just showed me the value of community and how important that is.
Yeah.
And so I also remember just out there on the course too. I think it was the day of the Beast. There was this big like A-frame wall, and you had to like jump probably, I don't know, maybe about 8 feet up or whatever was kind of like this wall. And then there was like a ladder up on top of that, but you had to hoist yourself up and then grab that next rim. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know if I can do this. Pull-ups are really tough for me. And so I get a run, I jump up, and I'm stuck in that zone. Like, and the next thing I know, I feel a hand and just push my foot up. And I look back, and there's a gentleman, you got this? Just give me a hand up, and didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
But someone just saw a need and just did that. And I think that was, again, I think that's why people do run these things. Is because there's something about that human connection. There's something about just helping one another out, complete strangers, helping complete strangers. I look back at them, I say, hey, thank you. Now here's the cool part of that story was I thought about bypassing that obstacle the next day because I was kind of out there running and I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this yesterday, but I thought I'm going to give it my best shot.
Yeah.
I'm just going to at least try. Maybe this is a bonus lesson, right? Got to at least try. And so I did. So I ran towards the wall and I jump up and I hit it just right, caught my momentum, and I was up across the ladder over the top of the wall. And that just proved something to me that, again, there's times where I think I can't do something, but like you said earlier, just try. Even if you fail, there's things you can learn from failure.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes we can learn more from failure than we do from success.
Absolutely.
It's very, very, very true. And so anyway, so those are my 3 things. And so, hey, if you're watching this podcast, listen, number 1, run your race. Don't compare yourself to others. Number 2, do something. Do something today. Something that scares you. It doesn't have to be a major thing or just moves you out of your comfort zone and try and make that a practice. The 3rd thing, find a tribe or a community that you can encourage. Now that's number 1. Who can you be encouraged? Don't go looking for encouragement. No, give some encouragement. And in turn, I think you'll find some.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a Spartan race for you. Maybe it's not. Doesn't have to be. But those are just some lessons, some takeaways that I have. So what are your thoughts, Jesse? Any follow up there?
No.
All right. Well, hey, it's good to be back podcasting with you.
No.
we
won't take that.
We are not going to take that much longer again. So, hey, like, subscribe, share. Hey, we're doing another thing. If you go to our website, legacylifestyle.life, we're going to offer a leadership book a summary of a leadership book every month. So if you sign up for our mailing list, you can get that for free. Not going to cost you anything. But otherwise, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.